Come with me as I step into the summer of 1969, where I relive the legendary moon landing. This story will take you back to the good old days, where everything made sense. So sit back, relax, and grab a hot drink. The summer of 1969 wrapped Willow Creek in a gentle embrace, with days unfolding under soft, endless skies, and evenings carrying whispers of quiet wonder. I was 12 then, a girl named Anna, with a long brown braid Mama tied with ribbons, and knees gently marked from wandering the twisted oaks in our backyard woods. Our faded blue two-story on Elm Street overlooked a yard sprinkled with wild flowers and a creaky swing set, in a peaceful Ohio town where the river meandered through the valley and doors remained unlocked under the stars. That July day dawned softly, sunlight filtering through my flower-patterned curtains, awakening me to the melodic birdsong mingling with a far-off tractor's hum. Downstairs, the kitchen breathed with coffee's percolating rhythm, its aroma blending with fresh sliced garden tomatoes, their juices pooling lazily on Mama's wooden board. "Morning, Anna," she said, her voice as soothing as the sun warming the linoleum. Daddy whistled gently from the garage, oil rag in hand, easing the Ford's engine back to life. Barefoot, I strolled the neighborhood, toes caressing the warm concrete, Lizzie following with her skipping rope, her soft giggles drifting like leaves. We lingered at Mr. Ellis's corner store, exchanging pennies for licorice twists, and jawbreakers that melted slowly on our tongues. At the creek, we dipped our feet in the murmuring water, minnows gliding silver like gentle secrets, the air filled with honeysuckle's sweet whisper, and the earth's soft breath from overnight rain. By noon, the town's conversations drifted naturally to the moon landing, Apollo 11 weaving through talks like a calm thread. At the drugstore, root beer fizzing cool in my hand, the pharmacist shared softly. A gentle miracle, NASA reaching for the stars. I nodded, throat refreshed, envisioning astronauts drifting peacefully in their capsule above our tranquil lanes. Back home, Lizzie and I helped Mama arrange snacks. Cheddar on light saltines, glossy cherries from the nearby orchard, and honey-sweetened iced tea in a cool pitcher. As afternoon eased by, Daddy prepared the living room as a cozy gathering spot. The Zenith TV shining softly like a welcoming light, antennas adjusted to clear away any haze. The braided rug invited bare feet, bookshelves exhaled the comforting scent of encyclopedias, and we spread blankets for easy seating. Lizzie adding yard-picked daisies, their petals glowing gently against the sill. Dusk arrived softly, neighbors' footsteps light on the porch. Mrs. Hargrove brought oatmeal cookies, crisp-edged and raisin-soft. The Thompsons shared salted popcorn, warm in its pot, twins smiling with quiet excitement. Uncle Joe and Aunt Clara joined, her coffee thermos steaming mildly, his stories of old radio days flowing like a calm stream. We settled together as the room filled with gentle murmurs, glass clinks, and soft cracker crunches. The zenith glowed warmly, Walter Cronkite's steady voice guiding us through the eagle's serene journey. Snacks passed around, cherries popping sweetly, popcorn buttery and inviting. Outside, indigo skies unfolded with stars twinkling like old friends, reflecting the screen's unfolding serenity. In that shared calm, Willow Creek felt woven into the universe's gentle tapestry, a quiet corner awaiting humanity's peaceful step forward. The whisper started like a gentle breeze rustling through the leaves of our maple tree, subtle at first, but soon weaving into the fabric of every day in Willow Creek. It was mid-July, and the space race had become more than just headlines in the daily paper. It felt like a shared dream floating over our little town, carried on the warm air that smelled of blooming lilacs and fresh-turned soil from the farms on the outskirts. I remember sitting on the porch steps after lunch, my braids still damp from splashing in the creek, listening as Mama hummed an old tune while hanging laundry on the line. The clothespins clicked softly against the wooden pegs, and the sheets billowed like sails, catching the sunlight in soft, dancing patterns. Daddy came in from the garage around then, wiping his hands on a rag that left faint oil streaks on his faded work shirt. He settled into the wicker chair beside me, his whistle fading into a contented sigh. "Heard on the radio this morning," he said, his voice low and steady like the river's flow. "Those astronauts are circling the moon right now, Anna. Can you imagine? Up there in that tin can, looking down at us." I leaned against the railing, my bare feet dangling, toes brushing the cool grass below. The idea wrapped around me like a cozy blanket. Men in silver suits, drifting in the vast quiet of space, while down here we went about our simple lives. The excitement had been building for months, ever since President Kennedy's speech years back, promising we'd reach the moon before the decade's end. In Willow Creek, it filtered in through the static of our kitchen radio during breakfast, where the announcer's voice would crackle about rocket tests and countdowns. Mama would pause her stirring of oatmeal, spoon hovering, and say, "What a time to be alive," her eyes distant, as if she could see the stars even in daylight. At school, before summer break, Miss Harper had pinned a map of the solar system to the blackboard, her chalk tracing the path from Earth to the moon with slow, deliberate strokes. We'd all stared, wide-eyed, tracing the distance with our fingers on desktops, scarred from years of pencil scratches. By afternoon, the whispers spread through the neighborhood like dandelion seeds on the wind. I wandered over to the Thompsons' yard, where the twins, Bobby and Billy, were sprawled on a patchwork quilt under their apple tree, comic books open to tales of space heroes and rocket ships. Lizzie tagged along, her skipping rope coiled like a snake in her pocket. "Did you hear?" Bobby asked, sitting up, his crew cut catching the light. "They're gonna land tomorrow, walk right on the moon's dust." Billy nodded, flipping a page with a soft rustle. "Like stepping on fresh snow, but no footprints before yours." We lay back, staring at the clouds drifting lazy overhead, imagining craters and gray seas instead of blue sky. The air hummed with bees visiting the clover, and the distant call of a meadowlark added to the serene symphony. Back home, the whispers found their way into supper preparations. Mama set the table with our everyday china, the plates with faint floral edges, and sliced bread from the bakery downtown, its crust still warm and yielding under the knife. Daddy tuned the radio on the windowsill, the dial clicking through stations until he found one broadcasting updates from Cape Kennedy. The announcer's voice was calm, measured, describing the Apollo 11's orbit with words like tranquil and precise. I helped Lizzie fold napkins, simple cotton squares Mama had hemmed herself, and we placed them neatly, the fabric soft against our fingertips. "What if they find something up there?" Lizzie wondered aloud, her voice a gentle murmur, like hidden treasures or friendly aliens. Mama smiled from the stove, where onions sizzled softly in the pan, their aroma mingling with the earthy scent of potatoes boiling. "Whatever they find, it'll be a step forward for all of us," she replied, her tone wrapping us in reassurance. As evening eased in, the whispers grew into quiet conversations on porches up and down Elm Street. Neighbors leaned on fences, their voices blending with the fading light. Mrs. Hargrove, her apron dusted with flour from baking, chatted with Mama about the broadcast schedule, her words floating over like a soft melody. "CBS with Walter Cronkite. He's the one to watch," she said, her knitting needles pausing in her lap. Uncle Joe stopped by on his evening stroll, pipe smoke curling lazy into the air, smelling of cherry tobacco. He shared stories of listening to Orson Welles' War of the Worlds on the radio back in '38, how the whole town had held its breath then too. "This time it's real magic," he said, his eyes twinkling under the porch light that flickered on as dusk deepened. Inside, the house settled into its nighttime rhythm, the Zenith in the living room standing silent but ready, its screen reflecting the warm glow of our table lamp. I sat at the kitchen table with a glass of milk, cool and creamy from the icebox, dunking one of Mrs. Hargrove's cookies, and watching crumbs swirl on the surface. The whispers of the space race lingered in my mind. not urgent or demanding, but like a lullaby promising dreams of distant worlds. Lizzie and I climbed the stairs to bed, the wooden steps creaking softly under our feet, and from my window, I gazed at the moon hanging low and full, a silver coin in the velvet sky. It seemed closer that night, almost touchable, as if it were waiting patiently for its visitors. Lying under my quilt, patched with scraps from old dresses, I let the day's gentle excitement wash over me. The crickets outside sang their steady chorus, a backdrop to the faint murmur of Mama and Daddy's voices downstairs, planning for tomorrow's gathering. The space race wasn't a roar in Willow Creek. It was a whisper, soft and inviting, drawing us all into a shared sense of wonder. As sleep tugged at my eyelids, I imagined the astronauts up there, orbiting in peaceful silence, and felt a quiet connection to the stars above our little town. The rhythm of our days in Willow Creek had always been a steady, comforting cadence, like the gentle tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway, marking time with unhurried precision. But that July, with the moon landing drawing near, a subtle shift crept in, like a soft melody overlaying a familiar tune. I woke earlier than usual, the flower-patterned curtains glowing with the first hints of dawn, and slipped downstairs to find Mama already at the stove, her cotton robe tied loosely, stirring a pot of grits that bubbled with a low, soothing hum. The kitchen air was warm, laced with the scent of bacon crisping in the cast-iron skillet, its sizzle a gentle counterpoint to the birdsong outside. Daddy joined us soon after, his footsteps soft on the creaky stairs, carrying the faint smell of sawdust from the garage where he'd been planning wood for a new shelf. He poured coffee from the percolator, the dark liquid steaming as it filled his mug, and sat at the table with the newspaper spread before him. The headline spoke of Apollo 11's journey, black ink on crisp paper, and he read aloud in his even voice. The spacecraft is on course, orbiting the moon as planned. Lizzie rubbed her eyes, patting in with her doll tucked under her arm, its button eyes reflecting the morning light. We ate together, the grits smooth and buttery on our spoons, the bacon crisp yet tender, the meal a quiet anchor amid the growing sense of something extraordinary approaching. After breakfast, the disruption wove into our chores, turning routine into something laced with quiet anticipation. I helped Mama in the garden, kneeling on the soft earth to pull weeds from around the tomato plants, their leaves releasing a fresh, green aroma that mingled with the soil's earthy dampness. The sun climbed higher, warming our backs through light cotton dresses, and Mama paused to wipe her brow with a handkerchief from her pocket. "Everything feels a little different today," she murmured, her eyes lifting to the sky where the moon hung pale and faint, like a forgotten ornament. Lizzie gathered fallen petals from the rose bushes, their soft pink hues scattering like confetti on the grass, and hummed a nursery rhyme about stars, her voice light and carefree. Daddy's workshop called him back, the sound of his hammer tapping rhythmically on wood echoing softly across the yard. I wandered over, the sawdust fine under my bare feet, and watched as he shaped a plank, the curls of wood peeling away like ribbons. "Building extra chairs for tomorrow," he explained, his smile calm, the plane gliding smoothly in his hands. The air in the garage was cool and shaded, scented with pine and machine oil, a peaceful haven where time seemed to slow. Yet even here, the radio on the workbench murmured updates, the announcer's voice drifting in like a distant conversation, speaking of checklists and trajectories in measured tones. Lunch brought us together again, simple sandwiches of ham on homemade bread, layered with lettuce from the garden, and a spread of mayonnaise that gleamed white and creamy. We ate on the porch, the swing creaking gently, as Lizzie and I rocked back and forth, our feet dangling. The neighborhood stirred around us, Mr. Ellis sweeping his storefront with a broom's soft swish, Mrs. Hargrove watering her flower boxes, the water pattering like rain on leaves. Conversation turned to the landing, words exchanged over fences in unhurried exchanges. The town's rhythm adapting to this new undercurrent without haste. Afternoon chores flowed on, but with pauses for reflection. I dusted the living room shelves, the cloth gliding over the encyclopedia's leather spines, their pages whispering as I straightened them. Lizzie folded laundry in the basket, matching socks with careful hands, the fabric warm from the sun. Mama ironed Daddy's shirts, the steam rising in soft clouds, scented with starch, and shared stories of her childhood stargazing on summer nights, her voice a gentle thread connecting past to present. The house hummed with these small disruptions, not jarring, but like a soft ripple on the creek's surface, inviting us to notice the wonder weaving through our days. As evening approached, the family gathered in the kitchen for supper, the table set with plates of fried chicken, golden and crisp, alongside mashed potatoes fluffy as clouds and green beans simmered tender. The meal was savored slowly, forks clinking softly against china, the flavors rich and familiar. Afterward, we sat on the porch as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in pastel hues, the air cooling with the promise of night. Fireflies began their dance, tiny lights flickering like stars come to earth, and the moon rose fuller, its glow a serene beacon. The day's rhythm, gently altered, left us with a sense of peaceful expectancy, the ordinary made special by the whispers of what was to come. Anticipation built in Willow Creek like the slow gathering of clouds on a summer horizon, not stormy, but soft and promising, infusing the air with a quiet buzz that hummed beneath the everyday. By midday, I found myself at the corner store with Lizzie, the bell above the door tinkling gently as we entered, the cool interior a refuge from the warming sun. Mr. Ellis stood behind the counter, polishing glass jars with a soft cloth. Their contents, peppermint sticks and lemon drops, gleaming like jewels. "Big day tomorrow," he said, his voice steady, handing us each a jawbreaker that rolled smooth on our tongues. Outside, the neighborhood pulsed with subtle preparations. Mrs. Hargrove's garden gate creaked open as she clipped herbs, rosemary and mint, their scents wafting on the breeze, fresh and invigorating. She waved us over, her apron pockets bulging with cuttings. "For the iced tea," she explained, her smile warm, tying bundles with twine that whispered against her fingers. The Thompsons' yard was alive with the twins chasing a ball, its soft thuds on the grass mingling with their laughter, while their mother hung a string of lights on the porch, the bulbs clinking like chimes in the wind. I strolled further, barefoot on the sun-warmed path, feeling the neighborhood's gentle stir. Uncle Joe leaned on his fence, pipe in hand, the cherry tobacco smoke curling lazy into the air. "Reminds me of waiting for the fair," he said, his eyes distant, recounting tales of carnival lights and cotton candy that melted sweet. Lizzie skipped beside me, her rope slapping softly against the sidewalk, and we paused at the creek bridge, the water below murmuring over stones, reflecting the sky's deepening blue. Back home, Mama was baking, the oven's warmth filling the kitchen with the aroma of sugar cookies browning to golden perfection. She dusted them with powdered sugar, a fine veil that settled like fresh snow, and we sampled one, the crumbly sweetness lingering. Daddy tuned the radio again, the dial clicking through stations until space updates filled the room. The announcer's voice calm, detailing the astronauts' routines in orbit. We listened, seated around the table, the anticipation weaving through our conversation like a soft thread. As afternoon faded, neighbors exchanged quiet plans over hedges trimmed neat, their clippers snipping rhythmically. "We'll bring the popcorn," Mrs. Thompson called, her voice carrying gentle across the yards. The sun slanted lower, casting long shadows that danced on the lawns, and fireflies tested the twilight with early flickers. The moon appeared pale and serene, a silent witness to our building wonder. Supper was light, cold chicken salad on lettuce leaves, crisp and refreshing, with slices of watermelon dripping sweet juice. We ate on the porch, the swing creaking softly, watching the neighborhood settle into evening. Lights winked on in windows, warm glows inviting, and the anticipation hung like a soft mist, not pressing but enveloping, drawing us all closer in shared quiet excitement. Invitations flowed through Willow Creek like a gentle stream, carrying warmth from house to house in soft-spoken words and handwritten notes on simple stationery. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky in lavender and gold, Mama sat at the kitchen table with a pad of paper, her pen gliding smoothly across the page. "We'll have the Hargroves, Thompsons, and Uncle Joe with Aunt Clara," she said, her voice a calm murmur, folding the notes neatly. I helped address them, the envelopes crisp under my fingers, stamped with images of American flags that seemed fitting for the occasion. Daddy took some to deliver, his footsteps light on the porch steps, the screen door sighing as it closed behind him. I watched from the window, the twilight air cool against the glass, as he strolled down Elm Street, pausing at gates that creaked welcomingly. "At the Hargroves," Mrs. Hargrove answered, her face lighting with a smile, accepting the note with thanks that floated back like a soft echo. The Thompsons' porch light glowed amber, and Mrs. Thompson nodded graciously, her children peeking curiously from behind her skirt. Lizzie and I carried the rest, our bare feet padding on the cooling sidewalks, the invitations tucked in our pockets like treasures. At Uncle Joe's, the door opened to the scent of pipe tobacco, warm and familiar. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," he said, his eyes twinkling, Aunt Clara beside him with a thermos already in mind. The neighborhood felt connected. Houses linked by these gentle summons, the air humming with crickets starting their nightly song. Back home, the house prepared itself, lamps casting soft pools of light on the braided rug, the Zenith standing sentinel in the corner. Mama arranged extra chairs borrowed from the church, their wooden seats polished smooth, placing them in a circle that invited closeness. We fluffed pillows on the sofa, their fabric soft and yielding, and Lizzie added her vase of daisies, the petals unfurling like quiet smiles. As night deepened, the invitations lingered in our thoughts, a web of warmth drawing kin and friends near. The moon rose higher, its light filtering through the curtains, serene and watchful. Sleep came easy, wrapped in the promise of togetherness, the house breathing softly around us. The living room transformed under our hands like a nest being feathered, each addition a layer of comfort for the gathering ahead. Morning light streamed through the windows, dusting the air with golden motes, as Daddy moved the coffee table aside, its legs scraping softly on the rug. "More space for everyone," he said, his voice steady, arranging the folding chairs in a semicircle facing the zenith, their seats inviting with cushions Mama had sewn from remnant fabric, soft and patterned with faint florals. I helped spread blankets on the floor for the children, the woolen weaves warm and textured, creating a picnic-like spot where we could sprawl. Lizzie scattered pillows, plump and downy, their covers embroidered with simple stitches Mama had taught us, adding pops of color like wildflowers in a meadow. The bookshelf stood nearby, its volumes aligned neatly, the encyclopedia's spines gleaming, ready for any curious questions that might arise. Mama draped a tablecloth over the sideboard, its linen smooth and white, setting out glasses that clinked gently as she placed them. A pitcher of lemonade waited in the icebox, lemons sliced thin and floating like sunny crescents, the liquid tart sweet and chilled. Daddy adjusted the antennas once more, the picture on the zenith clarifying to show test patterns in black and white, crisp and steady. We added final touches, a vase of fresh-cut lilies from the garden, their petals velvety and fragrant, perfuming the air with subtle sweetness. The room felt ready, cozy, and enveloping, a haven for shared moments. Outside, the neighborhood stirred softly, but inside, our setup promised warmth and serenity for the wonders to come. As the neighbors filtered into our living room, the space came alive with the gentle rustle of coats being draped over chairbacks, and the soft murmur of greetings exchanged like familiar melodies. Mrs. Hargrove arrived first, her steps light on the porch, carrying a tin box that she placed on the sideboard with a quiet clink. The lid lifted to reveal oatmeal cookies, their surfaces golden and cracked just so, the aroma of baked oats and cinnamon wafting out like a warm embrace. Raisins dotted each one, plump and sweet from soaking in vanilla extract, and the edges were crisp while the centers yielded softly to the touch. "Fresh from the oven this afternoon," she said, her voice as comforting as the treats themselves, arranging them on a platter lined with a doily she'd crocheted years ago, its threads fine and intricate. The Thompsons followed soon after, the parents' voices blending with the twins' excited chatter as they crossed the threshold. Mrs. Thompson held a large enamel pot, its lid still warm, filled with popcorn she'd popped on the stove just before leaving. The kernels were fluffy and light, seasoned with a pinch of salt that enhanced their buttery essence, the steam rising in faint wisps that carried the scent throughout the room. "Nothing like fresh popcorn for a show," she remarked, spooning it into bowls that Mama had set out, the ceramic cool against the warm snack. The twins, Bobby and Billy, hovered nearby, their small hands reaching for handfuls, the popcorn crunching softly between their fingers as they munched, kernels scattering like tiny snowflakes on the braided rug. Uncle Joe and Aunt Clara completed the circle, their arrival announced by the soft thud of Uncle Joe's walking stick on the floorboards. Aunt Clara unscrewed her thermos, the coffee inside steaming gently as she poured it into mugs, the dark liquid rich and aromatic, laced with a hint of cream that swirled in lazy patterns. "Black for those who like it strong," she said, her tone inviting, passing mugs around with napkins folded neatly beside them. Uncle Joe added a plate of cheese and crackers, the cheddar sliced thin and mild, its yellow hue bright against the crisp saltines that snapped delicately when broken. Cherries from our earlier preparation joined the spread, their glossy skins bursting with tart juice when bitten, stems collected in a small dish like discarded thoughts. We settled into our seats, the chairs creaking faintly under our weight, and the snacks began to circulate in a slow communal dance, hands extended across the circle, bowls and plates passed with care, the popcorn salt lingering on fingertips, cookies crumbling into sweet morsels that melted on the tongue. Sips of coffee warmed throats, its bitterness balanced by the subtle sweetness of sugar stirred in with tiny spoons that tinkled against porcelain. Lemonade followed, poured from the pitcher into jelly glasses, the ice cubes bobbing and clinking, the citrus tang refreshing against the richer flavors. Conversation blossomed naturally, voices overlapping in harmonious layers, like a quilt pieced from shared memories. Uncle Joe leaned back, his pipe unlit but gestured with for emphasis, and began with tales from his youth. "Back in the 30s, we'd gather around the old Philco radio," he said, his eyes distant, voice rolling like a gentle stream. "No pictures, just voices painting worlds in our minds. Remember Orson Welles' War of the Worlds? Half the town thought Martians were landing in the fields, folks running out with pitchforks, hearts pounding. Laughter rippled softly, the room filling with the warmth of recollection." As Aunt Clara nodded, adding, "We hid under the table that night, sipping hot cocoa to calm our nerves." Mama shared next, her hands folding a napkin absently, the fabric soft under her fingers. "My father used to take us out to the hilltop on clear nights," she recalled, her tone wistful. "No lights for miles, just the stars sprawling like diamonds on black velvet. He'd point out Orion's belt, tell stories of ancient sailors navigating by them. Felt like the universe was close enough to touch." The twins listened, wide-eyed, pausing their munching, popcorn halfway to their mouths. Bobby asked, "Did you ever see a shooting star?" Mama smiled, many, each one a wish whispered to the night. Mrs. Hargrove chimed in with memories of drive-in theaters, the family car parked under open skies, the screen flickering with tales of rocket men and distant planets. "We'd pack blankets and thermoses of soup," she said, her knitting needles clicking idly in her lap. The speakers hooked on the window, voices booming about space adventures, made us dream big, even in our small town. Mr. Thompson nodded, recounting newspaper clippings he'd saved from Sputnik's launch. The papers yellowed now, but the excitement fresh in his telling. The world changed overnight. Suddenly the sky wasn't the limit anymore. Lizzie, emboldened by the circle, shared her school project on constellations. Her voice small but clear. "We drew maps of the Big Dipper," she said, tracing shapes in the air with her finger. "Teacher said it's like a ladle pouring stars." The adults smiled, passing her a cookie as encouragement, the crumbly sweetness rewarding her contribution. I added my own bit, recalling library books with glossy photos of rockets, pages turned carefully under the reading lamp. The illustrations vivid even in black and white. The snacks dwindled gradually, bowls emptying kernel by kernel, cookies reduced to crumbs swept into palms. Coffee mugs were refilled, the thermos yielding its last drops with a soft gurgle, and cherries were savored one by one, their pits clicking into the dish. The stories tapered as the evening deepened, not ending abruptly, but fading into comfortable pauses. The room a cocoon of shared nostalgia. Outside, the crickets' chorus grew, a backdrop to our quiet contentment, the moon's light filtering through the curtains like a silent invitation. In that space, the snacks and stories wove us together, a gentle prelude to the wonders ahead. The Zenith stood ready in the corner, its screen dark but promising, as we lingered in the warmth of connection, the flavors and memories lingering long after the plates were cleared. With the snacks settled and stories lingering like echoes, Daddy turned his attention to the Zenith, the television standing sentinel in the corner, its cabinet a warm mahogany that gleamed under the lamp's soft light. The room's atmosphere shifted subtly, conversations tapering into expectant whispers, as he approached the set with the familiarity of an old friend. "Let's make sure she's tuned just right," he said, his voice steady and reassuring, kneeling on the braided rug that cushioned his knees with its woven texture. The air held a faint anticipation, mingled with the remaining scents of buttered popcorn and steamed coffee, creating a cozy backdrop for the task. He started with the power knob, twisting it with a click that brought the screen to life, a gray glow blooming slowly as the tubes warmed inside. The initial hum was low and vibrating, like the distant purr of a cat, growing into a steady tone as the test pattern appeared. Bars of alternating black and white, sharp lines that tested the reception's clarity. Daddy adjusted the volume dial first, turning it clockwise until the tone filled the room at a comfortable level, not overpowering but clear enough to carry every nuance of the upcoming broadcast. "Don't want to miss a word," he murmured, his fingers precise, the knob smooth under his touch from years of use. The antennas came next, those adjustable rabbit ears perched atop the set, their metal rods extendable with soft slides. He pulled them out to full length, the segments locking with gentle clicks, then angled them methodically. One tilted toward the window, capturing signals from the east, the other slightly bent to the north. With each adjustment, the screen responded, static snow flickering like falling leaves before clearing to a sharper image. The guests watched, Uncle Joe offering quiet suggestions from his chair, his pipe tucked away. A bit higher on the left, sometimes the tower signal bounces off the valley walls. Daddy nodded, making the tweak, the picture stabilizing, the bars now crisp without distortion. Aunt Clara handed him a mug of coffee during a pause, the steam rising in soft curls, its aroma grounding the moment. "You're the expert," she said, her tone encouraging, as he fine-tuned the contrast knob, deepening the blacks to a velvety depth, and brightening the whites to a clean glow without glare. The room's light reflected on the screen, but Daddy adjusted the brightness to balance it, ensuring the image remained vivid yet easy on the eyes. The twins shifted on their blanket, legs crossed, whispering about what the moon's surface might show, their voices low to not interrupt. Mama brought in a small stool for better reach, its wooden legs thumping softly on the rug, and Daddy stood on it to check the roof antenna connection through the window, the cord running discreetly along the baseboard. "Signal's strong tonight," he announced, descending with a satisfied nod, the picture now holding steady as a still pond. Lizzie passed him a napkin to wipe his hands, the paper soft, and he ruffled her hair gently in thanks. The group tested the setup, Daddy changing channels briefly to compare. The dial clicking through stations, NBC's coverage flickering by, ABC's briefly glimpsed, before returning to CBS, where Walter Cronkite's promo appeared, his face calm and authoritative. "Cronkite's the one," Mr. Thompson agreed, his voice approving as the volume was fine-tuned once more, the speakers delivering sound without echo or fuzz. In those moments of tuning, the black and white television became more than a machine. It was a portal, carefully calibrated to connect our quiet town to the cosmos. The room relaxed, guests sipping remaining lemonade, ice tinkling, as the set stood ready, its hum a serene promise of the wonders to follow. The Zenith television, now tuned to perfection, transitioned seamlessly from the static test patterns to the opening of the CBS broadcast, the network's logo fading in with a soft glow on the black and white screen. A gentle fanfare played through the speakers, brass notes rising and falling like a calm breath, setting a tone of quiet grandeur for what was to come. Walter Cronkite appeared behind his desk, his figure sharp in the monochrome image, glasses perched on his nose, tie knotted neatly, an expression one of measured composure mixed with an undercurrent of awe. "Good evening," he said, his voice emerging clear and resonant, filling our living room with the authority of a seasoned storyteller guiding us through uncharted territory. The sound was crisp, thanks to Daddy's careful adjustments, each syllable carrying without distortion, as if Cronkite were sitting among us in Willow Creek, sharing the moment over coffee. The room responded with a collective settling, chairs creaking faintly as bodies leaned forward slightly. Mugs of cooling coffee set aside on coasters with soft clinks. The air held the lingering warmth from the television's tubes, a subtle ozone scent blending with the faint buttery residue of popcorn and the rich aroma of Aunt Clara's brew, creating an intimate, enveloping atmosphere. Cronkite leaned into the camera just a bit, as if speaking directly to our small gathering, and began laying out the day's events with deliberate pacing. "We are on the verge of one of the greatest achievements in human history," he intoned, his words chosen with care, drawing us in like a gentle tide pulling at the shore, without any rush or urgency. On his desk sat models of the Apollo spacecraft, meticulously crafted in plastic, with intricate details like the thrusters and landing legs that caught the studio lights in subtle glints. He picked up the lunar module replica, holding it up for the camera's view, his pointer tracing its contours with slow, precise movements. "This is the Eagle," he explained, the name evoking images of soaring freedom over serene landscapes, which will detach from the command module and make the descent to the moon's surface in the sea of tranquility. The diagram on screen faded in, elegant lines arcing through the void of space, arrows indicating the separation and trajectory. The visuals simple yet profound in their black and white clarity, inviting us to visualize the mechanics without overwhelming the mind. We listened in rapt silence, the twins cross-legged on their blanket, chins rested on hands, eyes wide with wonder as they absorbed the details. Lizzie traced invisible paths in the air with her finger, mimicking the orbits shown, her movements slow and thoughtful, the napkin in her lap crinkling softly. Uncle Joe nodded along, his experience with old radios making him appreciate the broadcast's technical feat. Murmuring softly to Aunt Clara, "He's got a way of making the complex feel like a bedtime story." Aunt Clara sipped her coffee, the mug's warmth seeping through her fingers, her gaze fixed on the screen as Cronkite brought in experts via audio links, their voices joining in a harmonious discussion of the mission's intricacies. Mama quietly passed the bowl of cherries around again, the fruits rolling gently in the dish, their tart bursts punctuating the narrative when bitten. A small distraction that grounded us in the moment. Mrs. Hargrove's knitting needles rested idle in her lap, the yarn soft and forgotten, her attention fully on Cronkite as he detailed the astronauts' preparations. The checklists reviewed, the systems verified, the calm professionalism that belied the historic stakes. They've rested and are now in position for the descent, he said, his tone reverent, relaying the astronauts' voices from space, Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins speaking with composed efficiency. All systems nominal, one reported. The phrase hanging in the air like a reassuring mantra, evoking high mountain peaks or deep ocean dives. The broadcast wove in archival footage, the Saturn V rocket's launch replayed in slow motion, the flames blooming bright white on the screen, billowing smoke curling in soft clouds that contrasted against the Florida sky. The sound rumbled low through the speakers, a distant thunder that vibrated gently in our chests, reminding us of the power behind the serenity. Daddy glanced at the antennas, ensuring the signal remained strong, the picture holding crisp without a flicker. Conversations were minimal, whispers about the bravery involved, the ingenuity of the engineers, the beauty of human curiosity pushing boundaries. Cronkite paused for live updates from Mission Control, his pen tapping gently on the desk as he consulted notes, papers rustling faintly in the studio. Maps of the moon filled the screen, craters and Maria labeled with poetic names like Tycho and Mare Nubium, the gray tones inviting quiet contemplation of the alien landscape. These men are pioneers in the truest sense, he reflected, bridging the technical with the philosophical, his voice a gentle guide through the vastness. The program included interviews with scientists, their explanations of lunar geology and the scientific instruments aboard, delivered in unhurried tones that made the information accessible. As the broadcast progressed, the room's ambiance deepened, the zenith's glow casting soft shadows on the walls adorned with family photos and Lizzie's drawings. The lemonade glasses were refilled, the ice melting into cool, diluted sips that refreshed without distracting. The cherries dwindled, stems twirled in thoughtful fingers, pits accumulating in the dish like collected thoughts. Cronkite's presence anchored us, his words a serene thread, weaving science, history, and humanity into a tapestry of quiet awe. The broadcast unfolding like the pages of a cherished book, turning slowly to reveal the wonders within. In that moment, our small town felt intimately connected to the cosmos, the evening's serenity enhanced by the guide on the screen. A subtle tension began to weave through the living room, like the slow gathering of clouds on a horizon, not dark or threatening, but adding a layer of depth to the serene evening as the broadcast shifted to the eagle's approach to the moon. Cronkite's voice, still composed, took on a slightly more focused edge, his glasses reflecting the studio lights as he leaned forward. "The lunar module is now in its descent phase," he announced, the words carrying a weight that echoed the gravity of the moment. The screen displaying diagrams of the craft's path, lines curving downward in controlled arcs. The black and white visuals were clean and precise, the module's silhouette gliding toward the lunar surface. But the underlying complexity infused the air with a quiet intensity. The room mirrored this shift, bodies leaning a bit closer to the screen, chairs creaking softly under the movement. Mugs of coffee held tighter in laps, as if for anchor. The air felt thicker, the television's hum a constant backdrop that mingled with the faint rustle of napkins being clutched. The lingering scent of popcorn, now a distant memory as attention sharpened. Uncle Joe sat forward, his hands clasped loosely, whispering to Aunt Clara, "This is where it gets real. The landing's the riskiest part." Aunt Clara nodded, her knitting completely set aside, the yarn resting limp in her lap, her gaze fixed on the screen with a mix of wonder and subtle concern. Cronkite relayed the data from Mission Control in real time, numbers flowing in a calm recitation, altitude dropping from 50,000 feet to 40,000, velocity controlled by thrusters firing in short bursts. The figures evoked the immense scale, the moon's craters growing larger in the simulations, gray textures inviting imagination of the dusty terrain. The astronauts' voices crackled through the speakers, Armstrong's tone even and professional as he reported, Thrusters nominal, computer handling the descent. The tension built gradually, not in dramatic leaps, but like the slow tightening of a string. Our breaths aligning with the updates, the room's serenity now edged with anticipation. The twins drew their knees up on the blanket, hugging them close, their eyes wide, whispering questions to each other in hushed tones. What if it doesn't land right? Lizzie clutched her doll a little tighter, the fabric bunching under her small fingers, her face a picture of innocent focus. Mama passed the bowl of remaining cherries, the fruits rolling gently. Their tart pops a small distraction that grounded us, the pits clicking into the dish with soft sounds. Mrs. Hargrove breathed deeply, her hand resting on her chest, murmuring a quiet prayer, her voice barely audible over the broadcast. The screen showed telemetry graphs, lines dipping as the altitude decreased. 30,000 feet, Cronkite updated, his voice an anchor amid the rising suspense. An alarm from the craft was reported. A computer overload flashing warnings, but resolved swiftly with manual override, the explanation reassuring yet heightening the moment. They're flying it by hand now, he said, the words conveying the human skill at play, pilots navigating the unknown with precision. The tension wrapped us gently, a shared experience that drew the group closer, laps brushing as people shifted. The braided rugs soft under restless feet. Daddy kept an eye on the antennas, ready to adjust if needed, the picture holding steady, the black and white image a window to the drama. Conversation was sparse, brief comments like "so close" from Mr. Thompson, his tone hushed and reverent, or "they're doing great" from Mama, her voice steady to calm the children. The lemonade glasses remained untouched, ice melting into pools. As the descent continued, the moon's surface drawing nearer in our imaginations. As the altitude dropped further, 10,000 feet, the air seemed to hold its breath, the broadcast pace quickening just slightly. Cronkite's commentary a guiding light through the critical phase. The lander's shadow is described over the lunar dust, thrusters kicking up fine particles in the vacuum, the moment teetering on the edge of success. Our circle felt united in the subtle strain, the tension a testament to the wonder of the endeavor, waiting for the safe touchdown that would transform anticipation into joy. The room, our cozy sanctuary, pulsed with the heartbeat of history, the eagle's approach a serene yet gripping journey we shared from afar. The tension crested like a wave reaching shore as the eagle's descent entered its final phase. Cronkite's voice a steady beacon amid the quiet intensity. 60 feet down 2.5, he relayed from mission control. The numbers coming in measured bursts, the screen showing the simulation of the lander hovering above the lunar plain. Dust beginning to stir in imagined swirls. The black and white image captured the drama in simple lines, the module's legs extending, the surface below pocked with craters that seemed almost close enough to touch. The room was still, breaths held, the air thick with shared focus, the television's glow casting monochrome shadows on faces lined with anticipation. Then the call came. "Contact light," Armstrong's voice crackling across the void, followed by, "Okay, engine stop." The seconds stretched like taffy, the silence pregnant with possibility, until the historic confirmation rang out. "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." The words landed in our living room with soft impact, the release washing over us in waves of relief and wonder. Cheers rose gently, not boisterous, but heartfelt. Hands clapping with quiet enthusiasm, the sound echoing off the walls like a collective sigh of joy. Uncle Joe let out a low whistle, his eyes misting over. They did it. Landed on the moon, just like that. Aunt Clara dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, the paper soft against her skin. Her smile radiant as she whispered, "What a miracle." Cronkite, on screen, paused for a moment, removing his glasses slowly and wiping them with a handkerchief, his emotion visible in the slight tremble of his hand, his voice thick with awe. "Boy, oh boy," he said, his usual composure giving way to genuine feeling. the black and white image capturing the human behind the anchor. Man has landed on the moon. The room bloomed with joy, hugs exchanged. Mama pulling Lizzie close, her arms warm and reassuring. The twins high-fiving with small, excited slaps. Tears traced cheeks, not of sorrow, but pure wonder. The moment a pinnacle of serene achievement that left us all a little changed. Snacks were passed anew, cookies bitten with renewed appetite, the sweetness enhanced by the triumph, popcorn munched as if to celebrate. Conversation flowed, voices overlapping in excited but soft tones, recounting the descent's details. The computer alarms, the manual override, the skill that brought the craft down safely. They had to fly it by hand, Daddy noted, his voice filled with admiration, the group nodding in agreement. The Zenith continued the coverage, Cronkite composing himself to explain the next steps, the post-landing checks, the preparation for the walk. But the touchdown lingered, a milestone etched in our memories. The room buzzing with a gentle energy. Outside, the night sky seemed brighter, the moon hanging full and luminous, its light filtering through the curtains like a silent acknowledgement of the feat. The living room, our cozy capsule, felt connected to the cosmos. The touchdown, a gentle bridge between our earthbound lives and the stellar dreams now realized. Lizzie stared at the screen, her doll forgotten in her lap, whispering, "They're really there." The twins chattered about what the moon dust might feel like, their imaginations sparked, while the adults shared looks of quiet pride, the event uniting generations in a single, serene moment. The broadcast replayed the audio, the words, "The eagle has landed," echoing again, each repetition deepening the sense of accomplishment. Tears were wiped away with napkins, hugs lingered a bit longer, the group's bond strengthened by the shared witness. Mama refilled lemonade glasses, the citrus a refreshing toast to history. The ice tinkling like celebratory bells, the tension had dissolved into joy. The touchdown not just a technical success, but a human triumph that touched us all in our small town, leaving the evening wrapped in a glow of peaceful elation. The cheers subsided into smiles, the tears dried, but the joy persisted. The room a testament to the power of collective wonder, the moon landing a serene turning point in our shared story. Hours after the touchdown, the broadcast continued in its unhurried rhythm, Cronkite filling the time with expert interviews and recaps, his voice a steady companion that kept the room in a state of calm anticipation. The living room remained our cozy sanctuary, lamps casting soft pools of light on the braided rug. The Zenith screen the central focus as we sipped the last of the lemonade, the ice cubes melting into faint tinkles. The air held a gentle expectancy, not tense, but like the pause before a story's climax. Conversations murmuring about what the walk might reveal. The moon's dust, the view of Earth from afar. The twins fidgeted slightly on their blanket, their excitement bubbling in whispers, while Lizzie drew imaginary footprints on her napkin, the paper crinkling softly under her finger. The hatch opening was announced with quiet fanfare, Cronkite's tone reverent as he described the preparations, the screen showing grainy footage from the lander, the door swinging open to reveal the ladder descending into the lunar vacuum. "The astronauts have completed their checks," he said, his words paced to build the moment without rush. The black and white image capturing the suit's bulk as Armstrong prepared to exit. The room hushed further, breath sinking, the only sounds the television's hum and the occasional clink of a mug being set down. Outside, the night had deepened, stars twinkling through the window like distant witnesses. The moon's light filtering in as if to join us. Armstrong's voice came through the speakers, calm and deliberate. "I'm going to step off the LEM now." The camera from the lander framed the scene, his booted foot appearing first, then the full step, pressing into the fine lunar soil that puffed up in slow-motion clouds due to the low gravity. "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," he declared, the words resonating with profound simplicity, echoing across the cosmos and into our small town home. The room held its breath for a heartbeat, then released in a wave of soft awe, cheers rising gently, hands clapping with quiet fervor. The sound warm and communal. Tears welled in eyes, glistening under the lamp's glow, wiped away with napkins that had earlier held cookie crumbs. Mama pulled Lizzie into a hug, her arms warm and lingering, whispering, "Remember this moment, honey. It's history." The twins bounced on their knees, their excitement spilling over in hushed exclamations. "He's walking on the moon." Uncle Joe wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, his voice rough with emotion. "A leap for all of us, from right here in Ohio to up there." Aunt Clara smiled through tears. Her napkin dabbled at her cheeks. The group united in the serene joy of the achievement. The screen showed Armstrong on the surface, his suit bulky, yet his movements graceful in the 1/6 gravity, bouncing slightly as he tested the terrain. "The surface is fine and powdery," he described, his voice crackling but clear, evoking images of an alien landscape under the harsh sun. Aldrin joined soon after, the two astronauts setting up experiments, their figures small against the vast plain. The broadcast replayed the step, Cronkite commenting on its significance. A symbol of peace and exploration, his tone reflective, bridging the technical feat with its human meaning. Snacks were shared again, cookies passed as if to toast the moment. The sweetness matching the triumph, popcorn munched with renewed appreciation. Conversation flowed in soft waves, voices overlapping with wonder. The bravery of the men. The years of work behind the scenes. The view of Earth as a blue marble from the moon. Daddy adjusted the volume slightly, ensuring every word came through, the group nodding in agreement as Cronkite interviewed scientists about the implications. The living room felt transformed, the event a serene milestone that left us all a little more connected to the universe. The night outside seemed more alive, the stars brighter, the moon a friendly presence now marked by human touch. Lizzie stared at the screen, her doll forgotten, whispering, "I want to go there someday." The twins chattered about building rockets from cardboard. Their imaginations ignited. The adults shared looks of quiet pride. The first step not just a physical act, but a symbol of what humanity could achieve in peace. As the walk continued, the flag being planted with its stiff fabric in the vacuum, the room wrapped in a glow of elation, the historic step a gentle reminder of our place in the cosmos, the evening's serenity deepened by the shared marvel. The cheers began as a soft murmur, building gradually into a wave of heartfelt joy that washed over the living room, hands coming together in gentle claps that echoed like a warm applause from a close-knit audience. The sound was not loud or raucous, but intimate, filling the space with a sense of communal celebration, the braided rug absorbing the energy like a soft cushion. Tears flowed freely, glistening on cheeks in the soft lamplight, some wiping them away with the corners of napkins that still bore traces of cookie crumbs. The emotion a mix of awe and pride that left faces flushed and eyes bright. Hugs followed naturally, arms wrapping around shoulders in reassuring embraces. The fabric of dresses and shirts brushing together with whisper-soft sounds. The group drawing closer in the shared elation of the moment. Mama was the first to hug Lizzie, pulling her close with arms that smelled faintly of the garden's earth from earlier chores, whispering, "We saw something special tonight, didn't we?" Lizzie nodded, her small body nestling in, tears of excitement sparkling in her eyes as she hugged back. The twins, caught up in the energy, hugged each other with bouncy enthusiasm, then turned to Mama for more, their small arms reaching up, the embraces a chain of connection that linked the children to the adults. Uncle Joe pulled Aunt Clara into a side hug, his arm around her shoulders firm yet tender, his voice choked as he said, "Never thought I'd see the day. Man on the moon." Aunt Clara leaned into him, her napkin dabbled at her cheeks, smiling through the tears, the hug a quiet affirmation of their long shared life. The cheers continued in gentle waves, interspersed with laughter as the reality sank in. "They really walked on the moon," Mr. Thompson said, his clap resounding softly, his face beaming with pride as if it were his own achievement. Mrs. Hargrove joined in, her hands coming together with a gentle slap, tears tracing lines on her cheeks. What a beautiful, beautiful thing, humanity at its best. The living room felt alive with the energy, the walls seeming to absorb the joy. The Zenith screen still glowing with images of the astronauts, their steps replayed in slow motion, deepening the celebration. Snacks were passed once more, cookies broken and shared as if in a toast. The oatmeal sweetness a fitting accompaniment to the triumph, raisins popping with flavor that matched the burst of emotion. Popcorn bowls circulated again, kernels crunched with renewed vigor, the salt a tangy contrast to the tear-streaked smiles. Lemonade glasses were raised in impromptu toasts, the citrus cool and refreshing, ice tinkling like celebratory chimes as glasses clinked softly. "To Armstrong and Aldrin," Daddy said, his hug to Mama firm and affectionate, the group nodding in agreement, the cheers renewing with a soft round of applause. Tears were shed for various reasons: joy at the technical marvel, pride in the collective human effort, a touch of nostalgia for how far science had come from radio days to this. Mama's tears were for the future, thinking of what this meant for Lizzie and the twins, her hugs conveying hope and possibility. Uncle Joe's were for the past, remembering times when space was a distant dream, his embraces grateful for living to see it. The hugs lingered, pats on backs, and squeezes of hands, the physical closeness mirroring the emotional bond forged in the evening's events. The broadcast played on in the background, Cronkite's voice reflecting the global emotion, his own tears visible as he reported, "This is a day that will be remembered forever." The room's cheers synced with his sentiment, the tears a shared release, the hugs an affirmation of togetherness in witnessing history. The night outside seemed to celebrate too, fireflies flickering like tiny stars in the yard, the moon's light streaming in as if to join the festivity, casting silver patterns on the floor. The cheers subsided into smiles, the tears dried with final dabs of napkins, the hugs giving way to settled poses on chairs and blankets, but the joy persisted. The room wrapped in a serene afterglow of history, witnessed and emotions shared. The moon landing had brought us closer, the cheers, tears, and hugs, a testament to the power of collective wonder, leaving the evening in a peaceful, contented hush. As the broadcast drew to a close, Cronkite signing off with a reflective summary, the living room began to stir with soft movements, chairs pushing back with faint creaks as we rose. The Zenith turned off with a click that left the screen dark and the room quieter. The air felt lighter now, the tension fully released, replaced by a serene contentment that lingered like the aroma of coffee. "Let's step outside for some fresh air," Mama suggested, her voice soft, leading the way to the porch, the screen door sighing open to the cool night breeze that carried the scent of dew-kissed grass and distant river water. We gathered on the porch steps and rocking chairs, the wood creaking gently under our weight, the starry sky unfolding above like a velvet blanket sprinkled with diamonds. The moon hung low, full and luminous, its light casting a silver sheen on the yard. The fireflies dancing in twinkling patterns like earthly stars mirroring the heavens. "Look at that," Daddy said, pointing upward, his voice hushed with wonder, the constellations clear in the dark Ohio night. Orion's belt, the Big Dipper, seeming closer after the day's events. The group settled in, blankets draped over laps for warmth, the night enveloping us in peaceful quiet. The crickets' chorus a soothing backdrop to our reflections. Uncle Joe leaned on the railing, his pipe unlit but in hand, gazing at the moon. "We've touched it now," he murmured, his tone reflective, recalling his radio stories earlier. From listening to tales of space to seeing men walk there, what a journey. Aunt Clara nodded, her shawl pulled close, adding, "Makes you think about what's next, maybe Mars or beyond. The world feels bigger tonight." Their words hung in the air, inviting others to share, the breeze rustling the leaves in the maple tree, a gentle reminder of nature's constancy amid human leaps. Mama sat with Lizzie on her lap, hugging her loosely, staring upward. "This is what dreams are made of," she said, her voice soft, thinking of her own childhood stargazing. "Those men showed us anything's possible with patience and work." Lizzie, her eyes wide at the stars, whispered, "I want to be an astronaut," her words sparking smiles. The group encouraging her with nods. The twins pointed out shooting stars, their small voices excited but hushed. "Make a wish." The meteors streaking brief and bright across the sky. Mrs. Hargrove rocked in her chair, the creak rhythmic, reflecting on the day's unity. "Brought us all together, didn't it? Like the old drive-ins, but for something real." Mr. Thompson agreed, his arm around his wife. "Changes how we see ourselves. Small town, big universe." The reflections flowed like the river nearby, unhurried and deep, touching on science, hope, the human spirit. The night air cooled our faces, the stars twinkling as if in approval. The moon a serene beacon now marked by footprints. We lingered, the porch a vantage point for contemplation. The day's events settling into our souls. The fireflies faded as the hour grew late. The sky a canvas for thoughts. The reflections a gentle closure to the evening's marvel. Dawn broke gently over Willow Creek, the sun's first rays filtering through the flower-patterned curtains in my room, casting golden patterns on the quilt as I woke, the world feeling subtly altered, like a familiar path with new light. The house stirred with its usual rhythms, but with a quiet shift, the air fresher, the bird song brighter, the events of the night lingering like a pleasant dream. I padded downstairs, the stairs creaking softly. The kitchen welcoming with the percolator's bubble and the aroma of fresh coffee. Mama at the stove stirring oats, her smile wider as she said, "Morning, Anna. Did you sleep well after all that excitement?" Breakfast was simple but tasted brighter, the oats smooth and warm with milk from the icebox, topped with cherries from the orchard, their tartness a reminder of the night's snacks. Daddy read the newspaper, headlines bold with the landing, his voice animated as he shared details. They collected samples, rocks from another world. Lizzie chattered about the step, her spoon waving like a flag, the twins arriving early with their parents, the group reconvening over coffee, conversations laced with wonder. It feels like everything's possible now. The town stirred on, but with a quiet change. Neighbors waving with extra enthusiasm, the corner store buzzing with talk of the broadcast, Mr. Ellis stocking papers with moon photos. We wandered the neighborhood, the creek murmuring as always, but the sky seemed vaster. The moon's daytime ghost a friendly presence. The landing was a serene milestone, opening horizons. Our small lives touched by the giant leap. The world forever changed in peaceful ways. And that's the end of our story. Please subscribe and leave a comment if you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time for another old-timer story.